Ready to dive into a topic that's always in the headlines but rarely understood.
I'm ready.
Political development. We're going deeper than the headlines today.
Sound good.
Unpacking what this process really means, what has to go right for it to work,
Right.
and those big, often debated theories everyone throws around.
Yeah.
So, first things first. When we say political development, what are we actually talking about? It's got to be more than just countries holding elections, right?
You're absolutely right.
Right.
It's not a simple box to check. Think of it more like a political system's ability to not just survive, but to really thrive alongside its people. We're talking about enhanced stability, responsiveness, legitimacy, a government that's actually working with its citizens, not against them.
So a functioning democracy is part of it.
Yes.
But it's bigger than that.
Absolutely.
It's about a system that can adapt,
yes,
evolve, and effectively serve its people.
Exactly.
Okay, so if we think about it like building a house, what are those essential elements, those building blocks that need to be in place for a nation to really develop politically?
So one of the most crucial things is something called enhanced state capacity.
Okay.
Imagine a society where the government's not just there for show.
Right.
It actually has the resources, the infrastructure, the know-how to actually address problems effectively.
So not just a government in name only, but one that can get things done
Exactly.
for its people.
And it's not just about top-down control either.
Right.
True political development also needs expanding political participation, giving citizens a real voice and influence in how they're governed.
Because what's the point of a well-oiled machine if no one gets to drive it?
Exactly.
It's more than just voting. We're talking about, like, active citizenship, holding leaders accountable.
Line yards.
Absolutely. And underpinning all of this are robust legal frameworks.
Especially a strong rule of law.
Okay.
This is crucial for fairness, consistency, predictability.
Right. So we're talking about a system that's fair, transparent, predictable.
It can't just be arbitrary.
Right. Not where the rules change on a whim.
Exactly. Exactly.
But how do we explain how this process actually unfolds? What are the big theories that are out there that are trying to make sense of it all?
Well, there are a few schools of thought that have really shaped our understanding. One of the most influential is modernization theory, which argues that economic growth naturally paves the way for political freedom.
So the richer a country gets, the more likely it is to embrace democracy.
That's the general idea.
Okay, that makes intuitive sense.
Yeah.
But is it always that simple?
It's a compelling idea, and there are definitely examples that support it.
Right.
As economies grow, you tend to see a middle class emerge, education levels rise, and people start to demand more say in how they're governed. But
modernization theory has its critics who argue that it's maybe a little too Western-centric in its assumptions.
Right. One size rarely fits all in the real world, right?
Exactly.
So what are some of those alternative perspectives?
One perspective that challenges modernization theory is dependency theory. It takes a more critical view. It argues that developing nations often get stuck in a cycle of reliance on wealthier countries.
So instead of economic growth leading to freedom, it's more like they're trapped in a system that keeps them dependent on the already powerful.
Exactly. Dependency theory really highlights those often unequal power dynamics in the global economy and how they can make it really difficult for developing nations to break free and kind of chart their own course.
Well, a classic example is a country that's like rich in natural resources.
Exactly.
But they're completely reliant on foreign companies. For the extraction. Right. Totally.
The companies make all the profit. But the country itself stays kind of stuck. It's a sobering thought.
It is.
But if it's not always a simple case of like, oh, if we just get richer, then everything will be okay.
Right.
Then what's the alternative?
Right.
Is there one?
Well, some people point to what's often called the East Asian model as a potential alternative. This model really highlights the role of a strong strategic state in driving development.
Hold on. So you're saying a powerful government can actually be a good thing?
It can be.
That seems counterintuitive.
It's a balancing act, for sure. But the theory argues that in some cases, a state that has a clear vision and a willingness to intervene in the economy can actually drive really rapid growth and industrialization.
Okay, so like...
Think about South Korea, Japan, after World War II.
Right. Those are some pretty impressive examples when you think about it. So it's not just about the size of the government, right? It's about its, skills. Its ability to actually act strategically.
Yes.
And effectively.
It challenges the whole, small government versus big government debate, right?
Exactly.
Because it's not really about the size, it's about how it's used.
Yeah, exactly.
And this is where things get really interesting, because even with the best of intentions, political development can go off the rails.
Okay, everyone loves a good train wreck.
Of course.
Especially when it comes to global politics.
Right.
But seriously, what are some of the things that can go wrong?
Oh, so many things.
What are those danger zones?
So imagine a society that is so deeply divided along ethnic, religious, or regional lines that they can't even agree on basic goals or values.
That's a recipe for disaster.
It's a huge problem,
It's a full-blown identity crisis, right?
Exactly. When national unity just crumbles under the weight of these competing allegiances, it makes building a stable, functional political system almost impossible.
It's like trying to build a house on a foundation of sand.
Exactly. Very fragile.
Not going to end well.
Not at all.
So what else can send things sideways? What other crises are out there?
Well, another big one is a legitimacy crisis.
Okay.
This happens when citizens lose faith in the government's right to rule.
Right. So they might have power, but if people don't think they deserve it, that's a problem.
It could be due to corruption.
Right.
Incompetence.
Yeah.
A sense that the system is rigged.
It's like being a babysitter.
Okay.
You might technically be in charge, but if those kids don't respect you, you are in for a long night.
Exactly. That's a great analogy because once that trust is eroded, it can be really, really difficult to restore.
So we've got division, we've got distrust.
Yeah, two big ones.
What else? What else should we be on the lookout for?
Okay, so imagine a country where the central government, even if it has good intentions, really struggles to actually extend its reach to remote regions or to marginalized communities. That's what we call a penetration crisis.
So it's like the government is this big, powerful machine.
Yes.
But its gears aren't reaching every corner of the country.
That's a great way to put it.
Right.
It can lead to uneven development. Resentment towards the central government.
Right, because they feel ignored.
Exactly, left behind. It's like ignoring a leaky faucet.
Okay.
It might seem like a small problem at first, but eventually...
Yeah, it's going to cause some damage.
It can lead to major, major damage.
And then there's the participation crisis.
Yeah.
Where people actually want to have a say in how their society is run.
Yes.
But the channels for political involvement are blocked.
Yes, exactly.
Or they're just not adequate.
They're not heard.
Right. And that's got to be especially volatile in places that have recently transitioned to democracy.
Absolutely.
Or they're going through these periods of rapid social change.
Especially, because you have rising expectations. Right. And then if those expectations are dashed...
People want their voices heard.
Exactly. And they want it consistently, not just...
Right. Not just every 4 years when there's an election.
Exactly. Exactly.
Okay, so we've got identity crisis, we've got legitimacy crisis.
Yes.
Penetration crisis, participation crisis. Anything else? What am I missing?
We can't forget about the distribution crisis.
Ah, right, because progress isn't always evenly distributed.
That's the problem.
Some people end up with a much bigger slice of the pie.
Exactly, and that's what the distribution crisis is all about.
Okay.
It's when the benefits of economic growth are concentrated in the hands of a small few.
Okay.
And meanwhile, you have large segments of the population being left behind.
It's like throwing this fancy party, but only a select few are invited.
Right.
And everyone else is stuck outside looking in.
That's a great analogy.
Not exactly a recipe for social harmony, is it?
No. It can breed resentment.
Right.
It can lead to instability.
Okay, so we've got all these crises.
We do.
And then on top of that, it's not just about what's objectively happening, right?
Right.
It's about how people perceive these crises.
Absolutely. The human element is essential.
So give me an example.
Well, take the concept of relative deprivation.
Okay.
It's not just about how much you have in absolute terms.
Right.
It's about how much you have
compared to
what you think you deserve.
Okay.
Or what you see others having.
So how does that play into political development?
Well, If people feel like they're being left behind while others are getting ahead, even if their own lives are objectively improving, they may still feel a sense of grievance, of injustice.
It's not fair.
Exactly.
Why them and not me?
And that can be really powerful.
Okay, so perceptions matter.
They do.
A lot.
They really, really do.
It's not just about the objective reality of a situation.
Right.
It's about how people experience it.
Yes.
How they feel about it.
And those feelings can drive action.
Right.
Or inaction, as the case may be.
Okay, so we've got these crises, we've got the human element. Where do institutions fit into all of this?
Yes, institutions.
They're kind of the backbone of any political system, right?
They're essential.
Right.
Absolutely.
So what do they actually do? Why do we care about institutions?
They provide the framework for how power is exercised, how decisions are made, how citizens can hold their leaders accountable.
So it's like institutions are kind of like the operating systems of a political system. They can either help it run smoothly or constantly crash if they're like outdated or not fit for purpose.
It's a great analogy. Because just like any good operating system, institutions need to be adaptable. They have to evolve and change with the times.
So as a society develops, its institutions need to keep pace.
Exactly.
With changing social norms, economic realities,
of course,
people's expectations of what governance should look like.
Because it's a two-way street.
Right. So political development shapes institutions, but it's also shaped by institutions.
Precisely. It's a dynamic relationship.
Okay, so can you give me an example of how that actually plays out in the real world?
Well, think about the evolution of systems of government, right?
Okay.
You start with these very simple structures, and then you have this progression toward these really complex forms of governance.
It's a reflection of how much societies change.
Exactly, how much they grow.
And the institutions have to be able to grow along with them.
They have to adapt, or they risk becoming...
Or else they become obstacles.
Obstacles, exactly. And that's a key point, I think.
What is that?
Institutions can either facilitate or they can obstruct a nation's journey.
Interesting.
They can empower citizens, or they can concentrate power in the hands of a select few. Okay,
so how does all of this connect to democracy?
That's the big question.
Right, because we hear about democracy as being this goal of political development, but we've also seen how fragile it can be.
It's very fragile.
So what are the things that actually allow it to flourish?
Well, there's no magic formula.
Right.
There are certain things that we know that contribute to a healthy democracy.
Like what?
A robust civil society.
Okay, so what does that mean?
It means you have active citizens who are engaged in their communities, who are holding their leaders accountable.
So not just passive bystanders.
Exactly. They're active participants.
Okay. What else?
A free and independent media.
Right, because you need information.
You need information.
To make good decisions.
You need a way to hold those in power accountable.
Right. So it can't just be one voice.
Exactly. You need that diversity of perspectives.
Otherwise, it's easy for, like, misinformation and propaganda to take root.
Absolutely. And that can really poison the well.
Right. And then you can't make confirmed decisions.
Exactly. It's like trying to navigate a maze in the dark.
Blindfolded.
Right. You need a good map and a reliable compass.
What else? What am I missing? What's that third piece?
The third piece is a robust legal framework that protects individual rights and ensures equality before the law.
So it's not just about having elections.
Right.
It's about having the right conditions in place.
Exactly.
That can support a functioning democracy.
A strong civil society, a free press, an independent judiciary.
All those things matter.
They all work together.
Wow, that's a powerful vision.
It is.
For a just and equitable society.
It's what we should all be striving for.
So where do we go from here? What's the takeaway for our listeners who are, trying to make sense of this really complex topic of political development?
Well, I think the most important thing to remember is that it's a process.
Right. It's not a destination.
It's not like you wake up one day.
You don't just arrive.
And everything is perfect.
It's an ongoing journey.
It's about understanding those key elements.
The importance of institutions.
Yes.
Being aware of those crises that we talked about.
And recognizing the power of active citizenship.
Right. We all have a role to play.
We do.
This has been incredible.
It's been my pleasure.
Thank you for walking us through this.
It's a fascinating topic.
It really is.
It really is.
And for our listeners, thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
Thanks, everyone.
We'll see you next time.